The day started like any other Saturday. The sun shone brightly through the kitchen windows, casting warm light across the breakfast table. Otterly and Rachel were giggling over their favorite cartoons, while Garnet hummed to herself, preparing pancakes. It was a scene straight out of a family sitcom, a picture of normalcy. As the day went on, I kept myself busy with errands and some overdue garden work. I had just finished pruning the roses when Garnet called out to me, "Dinner's ready, Elmer!" We all gathered around the table, the aroma of roast chicken and potatoes filling the room. Otterly and Rachel took their seats, whispering secrets and laughing. I looked at Garnet, who seemed unusually quiet, but I brushed it off as her being tired from the week's work. Midway through dinner, as we were enjoying dessert, Garnet suddenly cleared her throat. "Elmer," she began, her voice steady but with an edge I hadn't noticed before. "I need to tell you something." I looked up, my fork halfway to my mouth. "What is it, Garnet?" She took a deep breath and spoke the words that would shatter our world. "I want a divorce. I've found someone else, and I want to be with him." The room fell silent. The clinking of forks and the girls' giggles ceased abruptly. I felt like I had been punched in the gut, unable to breathe or speak. Otterly's wide eyes darted between Garnet and me, while Rachel stared at her plate, unsure of what to do. I finally managed to find my voice, though it was barely a whisper. "What did you just say?" Garnet repeated herself, her tone matter of fact. "I want a divorce. I found someone else and I want to spend the rest of my life with him." Otterly looked at her mother, her eyes brimming with tears. "Mom, what do you mean? Why?" Garnet sighed, not meeting her daughter's gaze. "I'm sorry, Otterly. I really am. But I need to do this for myself." I couldn't hold back any longer. "In front of the kids, Garnet? You decide to drop this bombshell now with no warning?" She shrugged, her demeanor almost nonchalant. I thought it was better to be honest. The ice cream on my plate had melted, much like the semblance of normality that had surrounded our lives. I stood up, unable to sit there any longer. "I need some air," I muttered, heading for the door. Otterly's small voice followed me. "Dad, please don't go." I turned back to her, my heart breaking at the sight of her tears. "I'm just going to the garden, sweetheart. I need a moment." Outside, the cool evening air hit me like a splash of cold water. I leaned against the garden fence, staring at the roses I had so meticulously pruned earlier. The beauty of the flowers seemed trivial now, overshadowed by the chaos inside. A few minutes later, I heard the soft sound of footsteps. Turning, I saw Otterly and Rachel standing there, their faces filled with worry. Otterly reached out, her hand finding mine. "Dad, it's going to be okay. We're here." Rachel nodded, her eyes reflecting the same determination. "We'll get through this together." I knelt down, pulling both girls into a hug. "Thank you, girls. We'll figure this out. I promise." As we stood there, holding on to each other, I realized that no matter what happened, we still had each other. And somehow we would find a way to piece our lives back together, one step at a time. The days following Garnet's announcement were a haze of confusion and heartache. I found myself mechanically going through the motions, each task a distraction from the painful reality that Garnet was leaving. The house felt emptier, even though she was still there, packing her belongings. Otterly, my brave little girl, seemed to sense my struggle. She stepped up in ways that left me in awe. One morning, as I sat at the kitchen table staring blankly at a cup of coffee, she placed a hand on my shoulder. "Dad, you need to eat something," she said softly. "You can't just drink coffee all day." I looked at her, her eyes so much like her mother's, but filled with a resilience that Garnet had never shown. "I'm not really hungry, Otterly." She frowned, her small face determined. "You have to stay strong for us, for me and Rachel. We need you." I nodded, knowing she was right. "All right, sweetheart. I'll try." That day, I made a list of things that needed to be done. Find a lawyer, sort out the finances, and most importantly, figure out a new routine for Otterly and me. The tasks felt overwhelming, but breaking them down made them slightly more manageable. As Garnet's departure loomed closer, I reached out to Andora, Rachel's mother. She had always been supportive, and I knew I could count on her for help. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I called her. "Andora, it's Elmer," I began, my voice trembling slightly. "Elmer, hi," she replied, concern evident in her tone. "How are you holding up?" I sighed, rubbing my forehead. "Not great, to be honest. I was wondering if you could help with Otterly. I need to figure out a new routine for her." "Of course," she said without hesitation. "Rachel and I can help with anything you need. We'll get through this together." The next few days were a blur of activity. Andora and Rachel came over often, helping with chores and keeping Otterly company. Their presence was a balm for my wounded heart. One evening, as we all sat in the living room, Rachel turned to Otterly. "Otterly, do you want to come over to our house this weekend?" she asked, her voice bright and cheerful. "Mom said you can stay as long as you want." Otterly looked at me, her eyes seeking permission. I nodded, smiling. "That sounds like a great idea." As the girls ran off to plan their weekend, Andora sat beside me. "How are you really doing, Elmer?" she asked, her voice gentle. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past few days pressing down on me. "I'm struggling, Andora. It's like everything I knew is falling apart." She placed a comforting hand on my arm. "It's okay to feel that way. Just take it one day at a time. And remember, you're not alone. We're here for you." Her words were a lifeline, pulling me back from the brink of despair. With her help and the support of our children, I began to piece my life back together. It wasn't easy, and there were days when the pain seemed unbearable. But slowly we found a new normal. One afternoon, as I watched Otterly and Rachel play in the garden, Andora came to stand beside me. "They're resilient, aren't they?" she said, smiling. "Yes, they are," I agreed, feeling a flicker of hope. "We'll get through this, won't we?" She nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "Absolutely. We're stronger than we think." As the days turned into weeks, our routine settled into place. We found solace in each other, creating a new family dynamic that was different, but no less filled with love. Garnet's absence was a shadow that lingered, but it no longer defined our lives. We were moving forward, step by step, picking up the pieces and rebuilding our world. It was a few weeks after Garnet left when I finally met Andora properly. Until then, our interactions had been brief exchanges at school pickups or drop-offs or quick conversations during playdates. Now, with Garnet gone, Andora's presence in our lives grew more significant. One Friday evening, I was struggling to make dinner. Cooking had never been my strong suit, and my attempts at spaghetti were looking rather pathetic. Just as I was about to give up and order pizza, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Andora standing there, holding a casserole dish. "Hi, Elmer," she said, smiling warmly. "I thought you might need a little help with dinner." I stared at her, momentarily speechless. "Andora, you're a lifesaver. Come in, please." She stepped inside, setting the dish on the kitchen counter. "I made lasagna. I hope that's okay." "More than okay," I replied, grateful beyond words. "Thank you. I was just about to surrender to takeout." As we set the table together, Andora glanced at the chaos in my kitchen. "Looks like you've had a rough day." I chuckled, a bit embarrassed. "You could say that. Cooking isn't exactly my forte." "Well, we all have our strengths," she said kindly. "And from what Rachel tells me, you're pretty great at fixing things around the house. Maybe we can trade skills." Over dinner, the conversation flowed easily. Otterly and Rachel chattered away, their laughter filling the room. Andora and I talked about everything from work to the girls' school projects. It was the first time in weeks that I felt a sense of normalcy returning to my life. After we had eaten and the girls had run off to play, Andora helped me clean up. As we stood side by side at the sink, washing dishes, she turned to me. "Elmer, I know this has been incredibly hard on you and Otterly," she said gently. If there's anything I can do, please let me know. I paused, drying a plate and setting it aside. You've already done so much, Andora. I can't thank you enough. She smiled, her eyes warm and understanding. We're neighbors and friends. We help each other out. That's what community is about. As the weeks went by, Andora's visits became more frequent. She would drop by with dinner, help with homework, and even stay for a cup of coffee after the girls went to bed. Our conversations grew deeper, and I found myself looking forward to her company. One evening, after a particularly stressful day at work, I found Andora sitting at the kitchen table, chatting with Otterly and Rachel. She looked up as I walked in, concern etched on her face. You look exhausted, Elmer, she said, standing up. Why don't you sit down? I'll make you some tea. I nodded, sinking into a chair. Thanks, Andora. It's been one of those days. She placed a steaming mug of tea in front of me and sat down. Want to talk about it? I sighed, running a hand through my hair. Just work stuff, deadlines, meetings, and all that. Sometimes it feels like too much. She reached across the table, placing her hand over mine. You're doing an amazing job, Elmer. Balancing work and home life isn't easy, but you're handling it with grace. Her words brought a lump to my throat. I couldn't do it without you, Andora. You've been a rock for us. She squeezed my hand gently. We're in this together. Our bond grew stronger with each passing day. Andora wasn't just a friend. She was becoming a part of our family. The girls adored her, and so did I. Her kindness, patience, and unwavering support were like a beacon of light in the dark. One Saturday, we decided to take the girls to the park for a picnic. The weather was perfect, and the park was filled with families enjoying the sunny day. As we spread out a blanket and unpacked our lunch, the girls ran off to play on the swings. Andora sat down beside me, handing me a sandwich. Beautiful day, isn't it? It is, I agreed, watching the girls laugh and play. Thank you for suggesting this. I think we all needed it. She smiled, her eyes twinkling. Sometimes a change of scenery is all we need to recharge. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, enjoying the peacefulness of the park. Finally, Andora spoke again, her tone thoughtful. Elmer, have you thought about what's next for you and Otterly? I looked at her, feeling the weight of her question. I'm trying to take it one day at a time. But yes, I've been thinking about the future. I want to make sure Otterly has stability and love no matter what. Andora nodded, her expression serious. She's a strong girl, but she needs you to be strong too, and you don't have to do it alone. Her words resonated with me. I know. And having you in our lives has made all the difference. She reached out and took my hand. We'll get through this together, Elmer. Whatever the future holds, we'll face it as a team. As I looked into her eyes, I felt a sense of peace and hope that I hadn't felt in a long time. Andora was right. We were a team, and together, we could handle anything that came our way. Life began to settle into a new routine, a rhythm dictated by necessity and the presence of Andora, who had become an integral part of our lives. Mornings were no longer chaotic rushes, but rather well-orchestrated dances of breakfasts and school preparations, made smoother by her calm efficiency. One crisp morning, as I packed Otterly's lunch, Andora poured coffee into my mug, her movements familiar and comforting. You seem a bit more rested today, she commented, her tone light. I smiled, grateful for her observation. Yeah, I actually got more than 5 hours of sleep last night. Feels like a luxury these days. Andora laughed softly, the sound warming the cool morning air. Sleep is a luxury when you're a single parent. I remember those days well. As the school year progressed, Otterly and Rachel adjusted to the changes with remarkable resilience. They found solace in each other's company, their friendship deepening into a sisterly bond that was a joy to witness. After school, they would burst through the door, their faces flushed with excitement, eager to share their day's adventures. "Dad, we learned about the solar system today," Otterly exclaimed one afternoon, her eyes wide with wonder. "Did you know Saturn has over 80 moons?" Andora, who was slicing apples at the counter, joined in the conversation with a smile. "That's impressive. Did they tell you about the rings around Saturn?" "Yes, they're made of ice and rock," Otterly replied, accepting an apple slice from Andora. "Thanks, Andora. You always make the best snacks." Watching them interact, I felt a surge of gratitude for Andora's presence. She had seamlessly woven herself into the fabric of our lives, bringing stability and warmth. Later that evening, after the girls had gone to bed, Andora and I settled down in the living room with cups of tea. It had become our routine, this quiet moment of reflection at the end of each day. "Andora, I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done for us," I began, my voice heavy with sincerity. "You've helped us navigate through one of the toughest times in our lives." She set her tea down, her expression earnest. "Elmer, you don't need to thank me. This is what friends do. Besides, you and Otterly have brought so much joy into our lives. It's a two-way street." As winter approached, the days grew shorter and colder, but our home remained warm with laughter and shared moments. Christmas was especially memorable that year. Andora and I decided to combine our celebrations, creating new traditions that blended our families. The girls were thrilled, their excitement contagious as they helped decorate the tree and set up the lights. On Christmas Eve, as we sat around the fireplace, Otterly looked up at us with a thoughtful expression. "This is the best Christmas ever. Even though things are different, I feel like we're all part of a big, happy family." Rachel nodded in agreement, her eyes sparkling in the firelight. "Yeah, it's like we're sisters for real now." Andora reached out and squeezed both girls' hands. "You are sisters in all the ways that count. Family isn't just about blood. It's about who you choose to love and build your life with." Moved by her words, I added, "That's right. We've all chosen to be a family, and I am so grateful for each of you." The new year brought further cementing of our family dynamics. Andora's role in our household became indispensable, and her influence was evident in the happiness and stability of our home. We began planning family trips, looking forward to creating new memories together. One evening, while planning a trip to the mountains, Andora looked at me with a serious expression. "Elmer, have you thought about what this means for us? For our future?" I knew this conversation was inevitable. Taking her hand, I replied, "I've thought about it a lot, Andora. I can't imagine our lives without you and Rachel now. I hope you feel the same." She smiled, her eyes reflecting a mix of emotions. "I do, Elmer, I really do. Let's keep moving forward, together." With a sense of commitment and newfound purpose, we continued to build our life together, embracing the challenges and joys of our chosen family. The new normal was different, but it was ours, and it was filled with love. As the new year unfolded, Andora and I found ourselves increasingly intertwined, not just in our routines, but emotionally and spiritually. Our friendship deepened through shared responsibilities and mutual support, and I began to notice the subtle shifts in our interactions, the lingering looks, and the unspoken feelings simmering beneath the surface. One chilly February evening, after the girls had gone to bed, Andora and I found ourselves alone in the living room, sorting through a stack of old movies for a potential movie night. Our hands brushed as we both reached for a DVD, causing a jolt of electricity to pass between us. We paused, our hands still touching, and looked up into each other's eyes. "Sorry," I muttered, pulling back slightly, unsure of her reaction. "Don't be," Andora replied softly, holding my gaze. I like this. Us. It feels right, doesn't it?" I nodded, my heart racing. "It does. I felt it for a while, but wasn't sure if you..." She smiled, a gentle, reassuring smile that melted away any of my remaining doubts. "I felt it too, Elmer. I think we've been dancing around our feelings for too long." Encouraged by her openness, I took a step closer. "What do we do about this?" Because I don't want to just be friends anymore, Andora. Not when I feel so much more for you. Andora reached out, placing her hand on my cheek. Then let's not just be friends, she whispered, before leaning in to kiss me. It was a soft, tentative kiss that spoke of new beginnings and shared dreams. When we finally broke apart, we were both smiling. I guess movie night just turned into something else, I joked, my voice light with happiness. Andora laughed, her eyes twinkling. Best plot twist ever. As spring arrived, bringing with it the renewal of life, our relationship blossomed as well. We were careful to keep our romantic developments discreet in the beginning, conscious of how our deepening relationship might affect Otterly and Rachel. However, kids are perceptive, and it wasn't long before they began to notice the changes. One Saturday morning, while we were all preparing for a day out in the park, Rachel tugged on Andora's sleeve. "Are you and my dad like boyfriend and girlfriend now?" she asked innocently but directly, causing Otterly to giggle. Andora and I exchanged a look, deciding it was best to be honest. I knelt down to be eye level with the girls. "Yes, Rachel, Andora and I are together now. We love each other very much, and we wanted to make sure you both knew." Otterly, ever the thoughtful one, looked from me to Andora and back. "Does this mean Andora could become our mom for real?" she asked, her voice hopeful. I smiled, squeezing her hand. "If that's something everyone would like, it could definitely be a possibility in the future." Andora knelt down beside me, embracing both girls. "I would love that more than anything," she affirmed, her voice choked with emotion. With our feelings out in the open, our family dynamic took on a new layer of unity and joy. We spent the spring and early summer enjoying each other's company openly, our love growing stronger in the light of day. We attended school events together, went on small trips, and generally reveled in the newness of our relationship. One evening, as we watched the sunset from our backyard, Andora leaned against me. "I never thought I'd find this kind of happiness again," she admitted. "You and the girls have changed everything for me." I wrapped my arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "I feel the same, Andora. You've brought so much light into our lives. I love you." "I love you too, Elmer." "Here's to new beginnings," she replied, lifting her glass of iced tea and a toast. "To new beginnings," I echoed, clinking my glass against hers, feeling profoundly grateful for the unexpected turns of life that had led us here. Together we watched the sky deepen to a velvety twilight, our hearts full of hope and love for the future we were building together. As spring turned into summer, Andora, the girls, and I planned our first big trip together, a week-long vacation to the coast. The excitement was palpable, as neither Otterly nor Rachel had seen the ocean before. Preparations became a shared activity, bringing us even closer together as a family. A few nights before we were set to leave, we gathered around the dining room table with maps and travel brochures spread out before us. Otterly pointed excitedly at a picture of a beach. "Can we go here? It says they have the best ice cream and a huge playground right on the sand." Rachel chimed in, her voice brimming with anticipation. "And look, they have horseback riding along the beach. Can we do that too?" Andora laughed, her eyes twinkling with delight. "I think we can manage both. What do you think, Elmer? Are you ready to handle two horse-crazy girls?" I grinned, loving the infectious joy of our planning. "I think I can handle it, but only if I get to try some of that famous ice cream too." "Deal!" both girls shouted, laughing. As the trip approached, our days were filled with packing and last-minute errands. The morning we left, the car was packed to the brim with beach toys, suitcases, and a cooler filled with snacks. As I secured the last bag, Andora came over and slipped her hand in mine. "This is going to be a wonderful trip, Elmer. Thank you for making this happen," she said, her voice soft. I pulled her close for a quick hug. "It's all worth it to see the happiness on everyone's faces. Let's make some unforgettable memories." The drive to the coast was filled with singing, games, and the occasional pit stop to stretch our legs. As we neared the ocean, the girls pressed their faces against the windows, trying to catch the first glimpse of the sea. it is! Otterly exclaimed as the expansive blue came into view. The excitement in the car reached a new peak. We spent the days exploring the beach, building sand castles, and wading into the cool ocean waves. One afternoon, while Andora and the girls were out on a horseback ride along the shore, I set up a surprise for them, a picnic dinner right on the beach at sunset. When they returned, flushed and happy from their ride, Rachel spotted the picnic setup and ran towards it. "Dad, did you do this? It's like a movie!" Otterly joined her, both of them dropping to the blanket with wide smiles. "This is the best day ever!" Andora walked up, her hair tousled from the sea breeze, a look of contentment on her face. "You've outdone yourself, Elmer. This is perfect." As we ate, the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. I reached for Andora's hand under the table, giving it a squeeze. "I'm glad we're here, together." She squeezed back, her voice earnest. "Me too. There's nowhere else I'd rather be." On our last night, we took a walk along the beach, the girls running ahead with their flashlights, chasing the twilight. Andora and I hung back, walking slowly along the water's edge. "Think we should make this a yearly tradition?" I asked, watching the girls laugh and play. Andora nodded, leaning her head on my shoulder. "I think that's a wonderful idea. It's these adventures that bring us together, isn't it?" "It really is," I agreed, feeling a profound sense of gratitude for the journey that brought us to this moment. Our family, stronger and more united with each new adventure we shared. It was a crisp autumn afternoon, several months after our beach vacation, when our newfound peace was briefly disrupted. We were visiting a local harvest festival, enjoying the colorful displays of pumpkins and fall flowers, when a familiar figure caught my eye. It was Garnet, appearing quite unexpectedly among the crowd. Her presence was like a ghost from our past, momentarily chilling the warm day. Andora noticed the change in my expression and followed my gaze. "Elmer, isn't that—" "Yes, it's Garnet," I confirmed quietly, feeling a nod of apprehension. I hadn't seen her since she left, and her sudden reappearance brought back a flood of mixed emotions. Before I could decide how to react, Otterly spotted her as well. "Dad, isn't that Mom?" she asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "Yes, sweetheart, it is," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. Garnet had noticed us too and was making her way through the crowd. The closer she got, the more I could see the changes in her. She seemed thinner, slightly worn, but there was a tentative smile on her face as she approached. "Elmer, Andora, Otterly," Garnet greeted us, her eyes lingering on each of our faces. "It's been a long time." "Hello, Garnet," Andora responded politely, her hand finding mine and giving it a reassuring squeeze. Garnet's eyes fell on Otterly, who was holding back slightly, nestled close to Andora. "Otterly, you've grown so much," she said, her voice softening. Otterly nodded but remained quiet, clutching Andora's hand. I stepped forward, creating a gentle buffer. "What brings you here, Garnet?" "I've moved back to town," Garnet explained. I hoped I could see Otterly. I've missed her. Missed all of this." The conversation hung heavily between us. Andora finally broke the silence. "It's important for Otterly to have her mother in her life, Garnet. We want what's best for her." Garnet nodded, her eyes moist. "Thank you, Andora. That means a lot. I don't expect everything to go back to how it was. I just want to be part of Otterly's life again, if she'll have me." I looked down at Otterly, who was watching the exchange with a mix of curiosity and caution. "Otterly, would you like to talk to your mom for a bit?" Otterly looked up at me, then at Andora, searching for reassurance. Andora smiled gently, nodding. "It's okay, honey. I'll be right here." With a hesitant step, Otterly moved towards Garnet, who knelt down to be at eye level with her. "Hi, Mom," Otterly said quietly. "Hi, sweetheart," Garnet replied, clearly trying to hold back her emotions. "I've missed you so much." "I missed you too," Otterly admitted, and they hugged, a small, fragile connection mending itself. As Andora and I watched them, she whispered to me, "This is good, Elmer. Hard, but good for Otterly." I nodded, squeezing her hand. Yes, it's what she needs, but I'm glad we're doing this together. After a few minutes, Otterly returned to Andora's side, looking somewhat relieved. Garnet stood up, addressing both of us. "Thank you for this. I hope we can find a way to make it work." "We'll find a way," I assured her. "It's important for Otterly." As Garnet walked away, promising to be in touch, I felt a weight lift slightly. The past would always be part of our lives, but with Andora by my side and Otterly's continued happiness as our guide, I felt ready to face whatever came next. We returned to the festival activities, a little wiser and a little more hopeful about the future. The encounter with Garnet at the festival marked a new chapter in our lives, one that necessitated forgiveness and cautious reintegration. As autumn deepened, we found ourselves navigating this delicate balance of past and present, ensuring that Otterly's well-being remained at the forefront of all decisions. A few weeks later, on a cool, crisp evening, Andora and I sat on the front porch after putting Otterly to bed. She had a thoughtful expression, her eyes reflecting the flickering light from the candles on our small table. "Elmer, do you think we're handling this the right way with Garnet?" Andora asked, her voice tinged with concern. "I mean, involving her again in Otterly's life?" I took a moment before answering, weighing my words. "I believe we are," I finally said. "It's not just about what Otterly wants now, but what she'll need in the future. Having her mother back in her life, even if it's just partially, could be good for her." Andora nodded, placing her hand over mine. "I trust your judgment on this, Elmer. We've always managed to find the right path together." As we discussed our family dynamics, we decided it was essential to set some boundaries to ensure the situation remained healthy for everyone involved. We agreed that Garnet would start with scheduled visits, slowly building up trust and familiarity with Otterly again. The following weekend, we arranged for Garnet to join us at a local park, a neutral setting for their second meeting. The air was filled with the laughter of children and the crisp scent of fallen leaves. Garnet arrived on time, looking nervous but genuinely happy to be given the chance. Otterly ran up to her, a bit more relaxed this time, and took her hand. "Mom, let's go see the ducks by the pond," she suggested eagerly. Garnet looked at me for approval, and I nodded with a smile. "Go ahead, we'll be right here." As they walked away, Andora squeezed my shoulder. "You're doing great, Elmer. This is tough, but you're handling it with so much grace." "Thanks, Andora," I replied, watching Otterly and Garnet by the pond. "It feels right, doesn't it? Moving forward, healing." "It does," she agreed. "And speaking of moving forward, there's something I've been wanting to talk to you about." Curious, I turned to her. "What's on your mind?" Andora took a deep breath, her expression serious. "I think it's time we consider what our future looks like together, not just as a couple, but as a family. I mean, how do you feel about making things more official?" Her question took me by surprise, but it was a pleasant one. "Are you suggesting what I think you are?" "If you think I'm suggesting we get married, then yes," she said with a shy smile. "I love you, Elmer, and I love Otterly. I want us to be a family in every sense of the word." The sincerity in her voice moved me deeply. "I love you too, Andora, more than I thought possible after everything that's happened. Marrying you would make me the happiest man alive." We decided to discuss the idea with Otterly before making any plans, wanting to make sure she felt included and excited about the change. The following day, we sat down with her after dinner, a little family meeting in our cozy living room. "Otterly, Andora and I have something important to ask you," I began, feeling a mix of excitement and nerves. Otterly looked up from her drawing, her eyes curious. "What is it?" "Andora and I are thinking about getting married," I said. "How would you feel about that?" Otterly's face lit up with a smile. "Really? Andora? Would you be my stepmom?" Andora knelt down and hugged her. "If you'd like that, I'd love to be your stepmom, Otterly." Yes, let's do it, Otterly cheered, jumping up in excitement. With our hearts full and our paths merging more definitively, we began planning for a future that was brighter than ever. The journey wasn't without its challenges, but together, as a family, we were ready to face them and move forward, strengthened by love and united by hope. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey. If today's story resonated with you, or if you've experienced similar challenges in your relationships, remember you're not alone. We hope this video offers some insight or comfort as you navigate your own path forward. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. We value your perspectives and would love to hear your stories too. Join us next time for another profound exploration of the heart's resilience. Until then, take care and keep seeking your truth.